All right, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. I'm going to introduce myself. Since Lauren's not going to be with us tonight, she is at her other job and they had an admission, so she's not able to break away and introduce me. So I will let you guys know who I am. My name is Bill Moore. I am the founder of our group, the Food Truck Training Group, and I've written 5 books on food trucks in general. And this week we're going over Food Truck 201, Get Off the Truck, and we're up to pages 171 to 187. This will be the last couple of principles of the 5 principles that a food truck needs to understand and adhere to. So I got a question for you guys, and I'll let you guys think about this while I go through the presentation. Does anyone have a written budget? And if you don't have a written budget, I want you to think about why. Because any business, whether it be a food truck, a hot dog cart, or a multi-million, billion-dollar business, has a budget. People are held responsible for the numbers that budget contains and then hitting those numbers. So if you're serious about owning a food truck and then getting yourself off of the food truck to where you're going to own multiple food trucks, you got to have a budget. Which that takes us into principle number 4, create projections and budgets. Every expense must have a predetermined amount with a hard ceiling. Those budgets must be revisited and revised semi-annually. So what I'm talking about here is if you have a budget, let's say on your cell phone, that's something nice and easy. You got a cell phone for your business, use it as a hotspot, and that's the phone number that you use to represent your business. So you're going to be answering it frequently. It's going to have a budget. And it's going to have a budget based on whatever your particular cell phone plan is. You know, every single month that you're open, you're going to be selling or using rather that amount of money in that particular budget. And the same thing applies to every single expense you've got. You need to pre-spend it. You need to think about how much I'm going to be spending in each of those areas. To make sure that you understand how much money you're going to be spending on something like food costs, for instance, because food cost is a variable cost, meaning it goes up and it also comes down relative to your sales. So you got to project your revenue. What do you think you're going to do in sales for the next week, the next month? And if you're talking about numbers as small as what I'm going to be doing tomorrow in sales, that may be how much food you're able to afford is only to get you through tomorrow. So you're always thinking about how much I'm going to do in revenue. Also, having that daily projection helps you to understand how much food to prep, as well as how much food to buy. So you got to project your revenue. And it has to be sales based on history and trends. History would be looking at the same day or the same week last year. And if you have more than one year, obviously looking back at the sales history over the course of a number of years, but then you also want to look at the recent trend. So for example, if your sales in the month of December always decline, you can be pretty well assured that they're going to be declining this December as well. If you have a trend though, that shows that last year in November, you had lower sales than you had this year in November, then you can reasonably assume that while the December sales may decline, you're probably going to beat last year's sales. So that's a recent trend giving you the information to make an educated guess on what your sales will be for the coming month. So you're looking at those 2 particular things, history and trends. Obviously, your fixed costs become real easy to project because they're fixed. They don't change. You know exactly how much you're going to be spending in each of those. But you want to have that laid out because those expenses had to be paid and those expenses take away from your revenue. Then, of course, you're going to be doing your variable cost. Those are percentage based. So if you project yourself to do $10,000 the month of December and your food cost goal or your food cost budget is going to be 30% of your sales, then you know how much money you're going to be spending in food. And then it's up to you to make sure that all the portioning and all of the preparation and expiration dates and all of those things pertaining to your food are met so that you're not wasting or throwing away more food than you should, then of course your portions are exactly what you expect them to be when you had written your recipes, so that people are getting the exact same food that you based your menu prices on. So the variable cost, and this goes beyond the it goes beyond food. It would go to repair and maintenance, for instance. We want to set aside money for that. It goes into marketing. We want to have money set aside for that. And those are based on sales coming in because they're percentage based. Okay, so principle number 5, reporting accountability. And this is key performance indicators, KPIs. They have to be tracked and the results maintained and or improved. This falls back into principle number 4, because all of those budgets now become the key performance indicators for your month that's getting ready to start, or the week that's getting ready to start, or even the day that's getting ready to start. And the things you want to be comparing: your sales plus or minus the budget. How well do we do compared to what we thought we would do? Then you want to compare sales plus or minus last year. You're going to look at this same day last year as well as this week last year and this month last year. How did you do? And then look for reasons why you're doing better, because you want to duplicate those. And then also look for reasons why you might not be doing as well as you did last year. What's going on that you can correct, and then what's beyond your control. And if it's beyond your control, you don't have to be worried about it, because you can't fix what's beyond your control, but at least you need to be aware of what's causing your sales to be either plus or minus. Then you want to look at your food cost percent. How does it compare to what your budget was? How does it compare to what you're actually running? So you're actually going to take an inventory. You're going to count all the food you have left over and see what your usage on all that food adds up to be. You can also look at your waste percentage. Your waste percentage is the amount of food that you're throwing away. It's the amount of food that maybe would have been sold, but something happened to cause it not to be sold. For example, let's say you sell something that comes on a bun. So you pull a bun down from the rack and you accidentally drop the crown. Obviously, you can't use the crown, so you got to throw that away with the heel. That would be considered waste. Another thing that would be considered waste would be you get a box of tomatoes. It's got 25 pounds in it, and you're going to dice all those tomatoes up, or you're going to slice all those tomatoes up, but you're not using the core, and you're scooping the core out. The core becomes the waste. If you throw away the top shoulder slice and the bottom piece, because those are hard, you don't want to put those on a sandwich, those count as waste. So you're going to be adding all of those different pieces you throw away together in weight to see how much you're wasting in weight, and then put a dollar amount to that, so you have a set goal for that particular dollar or for that particular category of waste. I recommend that a food truck can probably hit around 0.6%. So 0.6 of 1%, 0.6 of 1%. And that's actually a bunch of money when you look at a daily sales on a food truck. So you should be well underneath that. Your hourly labor percentage. This is one of the biggest opportunities that food truck owners really don't seize, and that is scheduling people when they're needed, sending them home when they're not needed, and only spending the amount of labor that they need to get through the meal period or the rush period. Obviously, you need somebody to open if you're not going to be the one doing the opening task. You got to have somebody that's prepping before you ever get open. So you're going to be spending labor there. And then you're going to have somebody help you clean the place. So you're going to be spending labor there. But in the middle, from the time that you open until the time that you close, that labor can be controlled by, again, bringing on people when you need them, send them home when you don't need them. If you're one of those kind of trucks that runs with just 2 people all day long, that's fine. Your labor percent now really becomes a fixed cost, because you know that if you're going to be open 40 hours a week, you're going to be spending 40 hours worth of labor. And it's just a matter of we got to get more sales in to help cover that labor. But if you do schedule somebody to come in only when it's busy, for example, you schedule somebody to come in at 11 o'clock when you get busy, and you're going to send them home at 1 o'clock when it starts to slow down, that makes that part of the labor variable because it varies depending upon the sales you got coming in. And then it's up to you as the person that's running the food truck to send that employee home if it's slow at 12:30. If you realize, oh man, we're just not as busy as I thought we would be, why don't you go ahead and take off for the day? Most people don't mind going home early. All you got to do is just ask them, hey, would you like to go home early? And more than likely, they're going to say yes. But you got to track your labor and compare it to what your budget is, what you planned on using. R&M, that stands for repair and maintenance. That's a budget that I recommend that food trucks set that money aside because you are going to have repairs that need to be done on the food truck. If you have a trailer, you're going to have repairs on the trailer, and then your cooking equipment. There's no way around it. You will be spending money to repair that stuff. So you might as well just go ahead and set money aside from day one. Brand new equipment doesn't matter. Brand new tires, all of that stuff, set money aside. I recommend 1.5% of your sales. So if you're doing $1,000, you're setting aside $15 for that particular day to get you an account started so that when something does break down, you got money in that account and it's not a big crisis. If you've ever had a tire explode or a tire go flat on your food truck or trailer, you know those can be super expensive. And it's really sad that a food truck owner doesn't have money set aside because your tires are going to wear out. That's an obvious thing that needs to be repaired or replaced. So repair and maintenance, you're going to set that money aside. Now, the other side of that coin is when you guys spend it. Ideally, you're not spending more than you've already been setting aside. If that becomes the case, then your repair and maintenance budget, that 1.5%, always means there's money in the bank. But if you have a big repair that pulls out all of that money, then that percentage becomes higher. And that means you've not hit the budget. So you may want to revisit. Maybe 2% is what you need if you have an older truck where things are getting ready to break down. You may want to go ahead and put 2.5% away just so that you're covered when those little breakdowns happen. Marketing, that's another budget that you need to have. I recommend a minimum of 3%. Because marketing is not just spending money on ads. Marketing is also your wrap that's on your food truck or your food trailer. It is feather flags and anything that you use to get attention. If you buy spotlights to light your trailer up at night, all of those things are marketing, as well as buying ads on Facebook or Instagram, or paying for someone to do the ads for you, paying for your website. All of that falls under the marketing umbrella. So you got to have money set aside to pay those things. Your website, for instance, if you do a full-fledged website, runs about $300 a year. I would rather you have the money in the bank, knowing that at some point you're going to be spending $300, than for you to wait until the bill comes due and you have to make a decision. Do I cut back on a little bit of food this week so I can pay for my website? Or do I hope that I can generate enough sales to pay for the website before they turn it off? And we don't want to do that as business people. We want to have the money there in those accounts. So set aside marketing, set aside a marketing budget. Because at some point you're going to be replacing that menu board. You're going to be changing the wrap because it's going to fade, it's going to tear, it's going to get scratched. All of those things count as marketing, so you need a marketing budget. Cleaning supplies, office supplies. Both of those are very small budgets, but both of those need to have some accountability for the usage of those particular supplies. For example, if you were to spend about 0.4% on cleaning supplies for the month, that will give you a whole bunch of cleaning supplies. A crazy amount of cleaning supplies, but that's still a nice, comfortable budget. And then the idea is that you teach your employees how to properly portion the soaps and the sanitizer so that they're not overdoing it. More soap in dishwater does not make the dishes any easier to clean. All it does is waste your money. The same with the sanitizer. The sanitizer is going to evaporate at the same rate, no matter how strong you mix that sanitized solution. So you want to teach your employees how to handle the cleaning supplies and then budget them so that they're not going overboard. The same with towels, same with paper towels, all of those cleaning supplies. Office supplies, a lot of people don't even have a category for this, but yet they will use thermal paper in their printers. They will have guest checks where they handwrite guest checks. They will buy a printer paper and then print up menus. All of those things are office supplies. They may have, grease pencils or markers or pens within the trailer to write things. They may have those dry erase markers. All of those things count as office supplies, and it needs a budget. And it needs to be a relatively conservative budget, probably around 1 to 0.2%. And that's a whole bunch of office supplies when you go to spend that kind of money. You've got to have a key performance indicator on your marketing activity. You should have some goal every month that you're going to do a marketing activity. It doesn't have to be a big spend on, I'm going to spend, $500 on Facebook ads, but it should be some marketing activity, community involvement activity, something that gets your name out. And it doesn't have to cost money, but it still needs to be something that you're tracking and holding yourself and your people that are in charge of your food trucks, holding them accountable for doing. And then social media posts. Social media posts are such a big deal. I'm recommending to everybody that any day that you're open, that you schedule 3 posts. You can schedule those well in advance. So you don't have to worry about them in real time. But those 3 social media posts should be on every single platform that you're on. Most folks are on Facebook, but then there's also TikTok and there's Instagram and there's Twitter, there's Snapchat, all the different platforms. Some are more popular in certain areas than others. So you have to pick the 1 or 2 that are most popular in your area, schedule those posts, and again, 3 times a day. Once before you open, that reminds people that you're going to be out and about, tells them where you're going to be out and about, and gets them thinking about lunch or their dinner. Where am I going to get my meal from? Oh, hey, there's my favorite food truck. So you're setting that one out to go automatically before you open. Then you want to have one go out automatically in the middle of your meal period, whatever times you're open. Just again, to remind people that you're going to be out for a certain amount of time and you're still there, and to please come down and check out the food. And then the third social media post that you're going to send out automatically, one that you can schedule, is one for your planned closing time. And that is not a, hey, dudes, we're closed, because all that is a tease. What you're doing is saying, thank you guys so much for the awesome day. We're going to be at, and then you let people know we're going to be the next day. That implies that you're closed because you're thanking people for an awesome day without you saying, hey, dude, you missed out. I'm closed. I've sold out. I don't have any food for you. But if you just thank them and tell them to check you out the next place you're going to be, then they understand you're closed for the day. Then, of course, along with those 3 scheduled posts, you're going to be checking your social media. I recommend at least twice, once in the morning to check anything that came in overnight, reply to every single thing that is spoken to you on your social media. And then at the end of the day, same deal, reply to everything that is spoken to you on your social media. Make your comments sincere and specific to whatever the people are talking about. So if someone is telling you how awesome a particular product you sell is, then you want to thank them for the comments. And hey, I love that particular product too. Or hey, that's one of our favorites, or that's our top seller. That way it shows that you're actually reading the comments and responding to what they say, rather than just giving them the standard thank you and then moving on, because that comes across as insincere. So that's social media, and that needs to be something that you're putting into your accountability, whether it's for yourself personally or for the person you're going to have running your trucks. They've got to show and demonstrate that they're doing the social media for you. And then on the off days, at least post once a day. Just something. Picture your food, picture your trailer, little short video, something. People need to be constantly reminded that you exist. Because if you don't remind people you exist, someone else, a competitor, another restaurant, is going to remind them that, hey, we're out here too. Come check us out. So you can't slack on social media. You can't slack on the opportunity to shout from the mountaintops about your business. So the point about this principle, and then the three that we talked about last week, is these things don't ever change. You got to constantly do them. They got to become a part of your habits, part of what you're going to be doing every single day that you're in operation. And these become the expectations that you set up for your team. But you also got to hold yourself accountable. That's where this reporting accountability comes from. Sorry. Now, the neat thing about this, the reporting accountability, is you can also tie bonuses to this. So if you have somebody that you hire that's going to be running a food truck for you, you can tie bonuses to almost all of this stuff. So if they're hitting the budget, they're hitting the sales, they're controlling the R&M, they're doing the marketing, they're doing the activities that you requested, they're making the social media posts for you so you don't have to. You can create a bonus for each of those, or you can combine some of them together to give them a bonus. People like incentives. They like the opportunity to make more money. So anytime that you set up any kind of a bonus system, it needs to be just a little bit of a stretch. They need to earn it. So there has to be at least as much of a chance to hit it as there is a chance to miss it. And then you got to hold strict to whatever the criteria is. Let's say, for instance, you set a goal that you want to be 3% busier than you were last year. So if somebody comes in at 2.9% sales busier than last year, that's not the 3%. So you have to say, no bonus. And you have to be prepared to have that conversation. Because if an employee is working really, really hard to hit this, they know all through the month or all through the week, we are not hitting that. So they can make the adjustments to hit those sales. They can do a little bit more social media. They can get a little bit faster on service. They can do a little bit of marketing. They can do something to bring more people in so that they can get over whatever the goal is. I can tell you one of the best opportunities I ever had when we had a bonus in one of the restaurant systems I worked for. I ran multiple restaurants, and the only way I could get a bonus is if all of my people were able to get a bonus. So that puts a whole lot of pressure on me to make sure they're getting their bonus and teaching them how to do it. So that's the same thing you would want to do as the owner of your food truck fleet. If you have 1 or 2 or 3 food trucks with someone else running them, you got to teach them how to make the bonus, because you're showing an interest in them getting better, which of course ends up helping your business to get better and make you more money. So a bonus is never a way to take profit away from you as an owner. A bonus is a way for the business to get more profit by sharing some of that profit with other people. Okay, then the next section was about action. And these are a bunch of different quotes from Zig Ziglar, one of my most favorite authors. And I'll start with the first one. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. A lot of people will give you excuses on why they can't do a food truck, but they can never afford a food truck. They can never get great at running a food truck until they start. No one is going to be perfect at running a food truck. And that's the next quote. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can learn to do it well. I like to share one of the very first evaluations I had as a crew person. So this gets to be an old, tired story. So I'm going to share when I played baseball. I was 11 years old, and when I was 11 years old, I was 5 feet 11 inches tall. I was the tallest player on our team, and I was actually taller than both of our coaches. My mother had to bring my birth certificate to every game that we played because all the other coaches said I was too old to play in the league that I was in, because it was a 12 and under league. So I was 11 years old, and there's no way that 11-year-old is going to be that tall. So mom had to show my birth certificate off. One of the things that I could do really, really well, or at least I thought I could do really, really well, was pitch. And the coach would have me pitch. And I thought I was just the absolute best pitcher. I won every game that I played up until our championship. We were playing against a team we had already beaten. So I knew that, we can handle this. And we get out there and, play our game. It's like we always been, except they were hitting me. Every pitch I would throw, they would hit. Now, a lot of them went, towards the other players, and we were able to get the batter out, but they were hitting way more than I was accustomed to. And because of the particular league I was in and the way that they regulated how many innings a kid could pitch, I was the only pitcher available, so I had to finish that game. We ended up losing that game by 2 or 3 runs. It was a really close game. So I'm pretty upset because that was the first time that whole season I'd lost, and it was a championship game. So I'm really upset. And my mom is talking to the coach of the other team, who's somebody that she worked with. They worked at a hatchery. My mom was in the accounting department, and this particular gentleman worked in the actual hatchery part, taking care of the chickens and that kind of thing. So they're talking, and I walked up to them, I got little tears running down my cheek, and I'm just so upset that we lost. And the coach of the other team, his name was George, he said, "Bill, it wasn't your fault." I said, "I was the pitcher. It was my fault." He says, "Well, no. What I did was I took the team out because I knew you were the only pitcher that could be playing today. All the other players on your team that were pitchers had already hit their maximum innings. So I was the only one that could play as a pitcher." So he took his team out and he taught them how I pitched. And I was, my ego's getting a little inflated. Now, okay, I'm really pitching it fast. And he goes, "No, you throw the ball so slowly that it's almost impossible to gauge it because you expect it to bounce in front of the plate. And it never does. It just crosses the plate really, really slowly." And he said it took him a long time to figure out how to throw the ball that slow and it not bounce. Now, I've gone the whole season thinking I'm just the best pitcher in the world and I'm super fast and, I'm Nolan Ryan and I'm going to be, in the major leagues. No. I was so poor at pitching, it surprised the batters, and we were able to win from that surprise. So you've got to give yourself the opportunity to do things poorly and understand you're going to be bad at some things, and that's okay, but you will learn how to do them well. And the reason you were born to do them well, it's like this one says, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. And that's what George did. He planned to win. He prepared his team to face the slowest pitcher in the world, apparently. And at that point, they could expect to win because they learned how to hit against the ridiculously slow ball that I would throw. Don't count the things you do. Do the things that count. There are a lot of people I talk to every day. I talk to usually 8 to 10 people a day about their food truck and how it's going. And there's a lot of them that list off all the things that they do, but none of the things are important. They aren't the things that count. They feel like they're busy because they're doing a whole bunch of things, but they're not doing the things that move their business forward, that brings more people to the food truck, or helps with speed of service, or helps reduce their costs. They're just doing things. So do the things that count. And the best part is you get to figure out what those things are and then do them. Because when you're tough on yourself, life is going to be infinitely easier on you. You know, the point that George told me that I pitched the absolute slowest ball in the world, you know what I did the whole rest of that fall and the next year? I learned how to throw the ball faster. I learned how to have accuracy while I was throwing the ball faster. I wanted to be the best pitcher I could be. So I was tough on myself. I was outside. We lived at the top of a hill in Kentucky. And when I say hill, I do actually mean hill. It wasn't the top of a mountain. It's just the top of a hill. We had a 2-story house. In the front of that house, we had concrete steps. And I counted off the distance from where a batter would be to where the pitcher's mound would be. And I would stand there and throw a baseball at those concrete steps for hours on end. And a baseball doesn't bounce as much as you would like it to bounce. So there were a lot of times I was having to walk around and chase that ball down. And I would do that hour upon hour. My dad would make me come in when it got dark because I wanted to be the best. And it took somebody telling me that I thought I was great and I wasn't. You don't have to be perfect at running a food truck, but you have to understand you got to get better every single day and be tough on yourself and get better. When you encourage others, and this is what I like to think about our group, it's what I like to think about when I'm talking to people. When you encourage others, you in the process are encouraged because you're making a commitment and a difference in that person's life. Encouragement really does make a difference. It not only helps the person that you're talking to help them to see that they can do things, that they can achieve the kind of goals that they have, that they can achieve a well-ran food truck and make a bunch of money doing it. You're also encouraging yourself because you're uplifting the other person. And like we talk about many times, a rising tide raises all ships. So that's why I don't mind helping. I want people to help each other. That's why I can't stand it when people say, well, I'll PM you, I'll DM you. No, tell everybody. Because no matter what secret you got, that you've got to only share it to the one person who asks. If you share what you believe to be a secret, you're probably going to find out it's not any different than anybody else is doing. And then if they end up getting a little bit better, that's going to force you to get a little bit better so you can stay ahead. Trying to hold everything together really tightly only works so long. Because eventually people will move ahead of you because you've been too worried about holding your secrets in instead of getting better at what you do.